Hey there, and welcome to Edit My Photo for December 2021. This image submitted by Kim has been beautifully shot and has a lot of potential. The setting is gorgeous and the dog's pose and the expression is great. Where it falls down is the composition and the crop, which we're going to address in this Photoshop focused edit. Feel free to follow along from start to finish or fast track through the tutorial using the chapter links down below. And as always, if you like the video, please subscribe for more pet photography, shooting and editing tips and tricks. Hi, I'm Charlotte Reeves from Unleashed Education, and you've tuned in to another Edit My Photo Winners Edit. We run this free editing challenge in our Unleashed Education community every month. It goes through a few different stages. Firstly, Craig and I take turns to submit one of our raw images for members of the challenge to download and edit. For this challenge, I submitted this raw image of June. The winner of the challenge was Kim with her beautifully pastel-toned edit of this fun, splashy beach action shot. As the winner of the challenge, Kim submitted one of her images for me to edit. In this edit, I'll be doing some minor tweaks to the color balance and tones, then diving into Photoshop to use a clever technique to fix the unbalanced composition. It's amazing what you can achieve with a little outside the box, literally, thinking. I think this image really shines after this edit. Make sure you watch all the way to the end so you can see the final result. And as always, I welcome your questions and feedback in the comments. So first up, I'd like to talk about what I really like about this image. It's got a lot going for it, I think. I really like the pose of the dog. The dog is looking intently at something, which is really important when the dog isn't looking at the camera. They need to be looking at something. This dog is definitely looking up at, it looks like the owner. You can just see the owner there on the left-hand side. So it's actually quite a nice expression. The low angle is great. It's meant that there's some layers in the image. There's a definite foreground layer here, which is nice and blurry. Then the middle ground where the dog is, and then that beautiful background layer as well with those beautiful colors and all that pretty bokeh. Focus is good. The dog is nice and sharp. It's been shot at a fairly fast shutter speed, which is great. Shallow depth of field, and the ISO isn't overly high for a Canon 1DX Mark II. So here's what I think we can improve in the image. I would really like to bring some more of the warmth through. The whites of the dog look quite cool and a little bit green, so we're definitely going to be playing around with that. The dog's face is quite dark because it just has dark fur, so we're going to be working on bringing out some more detail and contrast in that area. We'll get rid of the collar. It doesn't really contribute anything to the image. I don't think we need it there. But the main thing that we're going to be concentrating on this is the composition. Usually when you've got the dog looking up into an area of the image, you need to leave some space there for the dog to look into. Because the dog is off center and also facing and looking to the left, we really need some more image on the left-hand side there. So we're going to work on creating some more image there. I'd also like to maybe recycle some of this background from the right-hand side to put on the left-hand side because it's just a lot more colorful and a lot prettier. So let's start off here in Lightroom with some local adjustments. I'm just going to run through and make those adjustments fairly quickly. They're fairly straightforward, and I'll explain what I've done afterwards. All right, so what I've done here is just my usual really. So I've used the eyedropper to set the color temperature based on the dog's white being properly white, so being a neutral target. And then I had a bit of a play and a bit of a tweak with that to get it looking how I wanted it. Didn't touch the exposure or the contrast. Those were both really good. I took highlights down, shadows up, whites up, and blacks down just to kind of spread those tones nicely, distribute them along the histogram. I also took the clarity up, the vibrance up, and then in the tone curve, just added a little bit more contrast by taking the highlights down, lights up a little, darks down, just a touch. So I'm happy with how this image is looking now. I don't really think there's anything more we need to do in Lightroom. So I'm going to take this image into Photoshop and I'll see you there. So here we are in Photoshop. Now, the technique that I'm going to use to get more image on the left-hand side is basically by using the image on the right-hand side and flipping it and putting it over there. So first of all, I'm going to duplicate the background layer, dragging it into the new layer icon. And then I'm going to flip that layer. So I want to Control A or Command A to select all. And I'm going to go Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal, and then Command D to deselect. So that's then flipped that other layer onto that side. Now I'm going to need to shift that layer over to the left a bit more, but I also want to see the layer underneath so I know where to put it. So I'm just going to, with the Move tool selected, press 5 on the keyboard, and that then changes the opacity. With the Move tool again, I'm going to move this layer across, probably to around there. It's looking like some kind of weird album cover at the moment, which is pretty cool. And the next thing I'm going to do is crop the image. I'm going to recrop it where I want it. So I press C on the keyboard. It's come up with a 2:3 ratio, which is the standard aspect ratio I do want to use. It's in a portrait mode though. So to flip it into horizontal, I just need to press X. And I'm going to shift this across until I'm including some more of that image on the left there that I want. I think about there. Now, just in case I need to adjust this later on, I'm going to make sure Delete Cropped Pixels is unticked. That means I'll be able to recrop the image and I'll be able to access those areas that I cropped out. So I'm going to press Return to commit that. Take this layer opacity back to 100%. Then I'm going to add a mask to this extra top layer. I'm going to add a black mask. So Option, click on the new mask icon. Going to switch to a brush, B on the keyboard, make sure it's a nice big brush. I'm just increasing the size with the square brackets on the keyboard there. And I'm going to make sure the mask is selected and that I have white as the color of the brush. And I'm just going to paint in this area here. Now that's transplanted some of this beautiful texture from this side onto this side. Something it's also done, though, is given us a very obvious flipped repeating pattern. I'm going to show you how to fix this. So I mentioned before that sometimes you might need to adjust the crop afterwards. So I think the crop, looking at it now, it's a little bit too far over that way. So I want to bring it back a little bit to the right. So press C on the keyboard and I can now move this back this way a little bit, because I didn't tick Delete Crop Pixels before. So I'm thinking about there. About there is going to be good. You can always adjust this again later. So this way we've got a bit of extra space on this side of the image, the dog's energy from its gaze and its body position to moving to in the image. So let me have a look at this. I'm pretty happy with how this is looking. I may just slightly adjust this mask. Okay, let's go with this. I'm going to flatten this now. I have a custom keyboard shortcut set up for that. Now we're going to make sure that we're not seeing any crazy, weird, repeating patterns that are going to be a dead giveaway of what we've done here. So the main thing I'm going to do is just make sure that things like this area looks different on both sides. So I might take a little bit of this away, take a little bit of this away at the top, just so they're different enough so it doesn't draw the eye. I also need to do the same thing over here. That bit of foliage especially is a dead giveaway because it's an exact copy of this bit here. So I'll probably do some modifications on both sides. The tools that I'm going to be using are mostly the patch tool, either used as the patch tool or just used as a selection and then a content aware fill applied, the clone stamp tool and the spot healing brush tool. So I'll dive in and do that and then we'll reconvene when I'm finished. Okay, so I hopped around quite a little bit doing that, mainly because I just kept spotting little bits and pieces that I needed to tidy up. So I'll leave you some notes on that speed edit. So what I've basically done is gone through and tried to make the two sides as different as possible. And I think I've actually done a fairly okay job there. I'm just spotting stuff, of course, now that I think I've finished, that I can see that's sort of duplicated. And sometimes this is the kind of job where you go in and fix things up later after you've finished. But using my workflow, it's pretty easy to be able to do that. It means you're not creating multiple copies of the same file. I'll show you how to do that when we get back to Lightroom. So I think this is actually looking pretty good. I'm just going to grab the burn tool. I like to use the burn tool for darkening. I usually use it on midtones, 10%. And I like it because it's just like working in an old school darkroom. You just get to build up the effect of burning in or darkening certain areas of the image. You can also do this non-destructively using layers, but this is something that I just like doing with this tool. Everyone's different. I think that's looking pretty good. Final thing that I'm going to do here in Photoshop is apply some sharpening and noise reduction. So I've just recently started using the topaz filters and I'm really loving them. So what I'm going to do is create a duplicate layer. So just duplicate that background layer. And I'm doing that because when I apply the filter, I may not want to apply it to the whole image, and that then allows me to mask off certain parts of that extra layer if I don't want to use the sharpening or the noise reduction. So filter, I think I'm going to go with sharpen on this one because I don't think I need to do a lot of noise reduction to this one. So when this opens, it generally will just pick the setting that it thinks is going to be best. It's picked out of focus very blurry, which is obviously not the case, but I do really love the way this particular setting really sharpens up the fur beautifully. If you notice the difference, especially in this white fur here, once it updates, gives you a lot of definition in that fur and also in those ears as well, and the fur on the dog's head as well. So I think I'm going to go with this one. So apply. Now back here in Lightroom, I'm just going to turn that layer off and on so you can really see the difference that makes. The fur definition is just amazing with that filter. I'm not sure I really like what it's done to the background. So what I'm going to do is only apply that sharpening effect to the dog. So I'll need to select the dog. Photoshop has a pretty quick way of doing this. You can just go to select subject. It's done a pretty good selection of that subject there. So now we've got the selection, we can create a mask using that selection. So we just have to hit the mask icon. And what it's done, it's masked out the rest of the image. And so the only part of that top layer with the sharpening that shows through is the area in white with the mask. I'm going to actually go in and expand this mask area just a little bit. So I'm getting all of these hairs along the edge. See how it's kind of cut into them? So I pressed backslash on the keyboard to get into this mode, by the way. It allows you to see where the masking is going. I want to make sure I have a white brush, and I'm just going to run along the edge here and make sure I'm getting all those little hairs. So really that select subject in Photoshop here was just a starting point, and I've gone through and really softened that edge. Now when I turn this off, you can see how much sharper these bits of hair kind of stand out against that background now. So that's all looking pretty good. Now, I don't think I want to go quite as sharp as the full strength that this filter has given, so I'm going to reduce the opacity of that layer, maybe down to about 72%. Looks pretty spot on for me. I could apply some noise reduction to the background, but honestly, the noise is so minimal, and I do think it looks a little bit weird when backgrounds are just a bit too smooth, so I'm just going to leave that one alone for now. All right, so I'll flatten that down. So now this image is ready to take back into Lightroom to do a little bit of painting with light. Okay, so now we're back in Lightroom with this fully edited PSD file. What I want to do now is really help to draw attention to the subject by painting with light a little. So first of all, I'm going to add a radial gradient, and this is a bit of a custom vignette. So I'm going to put the focus on the dog's face, then invert that gradient, and then subtract the subject. So if we have a look at this mask in the white on black mode, you can see exactly how that is working. I like the white on black mode because I feel like it gives you a more accurate picture of exactly what's going on with the masking. The red overlay can be a bit confusing sometimes. Red overlay is good for when you need to see the image underneath. So as soon as you start moving these sliders, it's going to remove that mask, but I always like to see the starting point. So I'll usually press O on the keyboard that gets rid of that mask manually before I start making any adjustments. So I'd like to darken the edges a little bit more. And I think I'll also reduce the contrast a little bit because that also helps with drawing attention to the subject. Basically, you want your subject to be the most important thing in the image, which means it's going to be the sharpest and have the most contrast. So reducing the contrast elsewhere in the image helps to achieve that. So I think that's quite good so far. With these, you also want to concentrate on where the light is coming from. I think the light is coming mostly from behind and a little bit to the left here. So with that mask, I'm also going to subtract with the brush. Nice big brush, nice big feather. I'm going to subtract the vignette from this kind of area up here. Turn off auto mask. So let's go back to the mask overlay. So turning that off again. And turning that mask off and on. That's then staying true to the direction of light in the original image. I'm also going to accentuate that a little bit too. So I'll add another mask, a radial gradient again. I'll make it kind of long, oblong, and put it so it's coming across onto the background like this to create a reverse spotlight type of effect. I'll then need to, again, subtract the subject. So again, this is what the mask actually looks like. Turn that mask off. And I'm going to add I'm going to remove a bit of dehaze, which is dehaze, just to reduce contrast and lighten that area there. Reduce contrast a little and just warm it up even further. Maybe add a little bit of tint as well. So now if I turn that mask off and on, see how it's just kind of lightened and reduced contrast in that area behind. So it kind of looks like there's sunshine flowing through from behind. And I think that's actually all I'm going to do with this image. Now, I did promise before that I would show you what you need to do if you then notice something that you need to fix. So you can edit this file back in Photoshop and not lose your Lightroom changes. You just need to go to edit, so Command or Control E to edit. Now, the option that you choose here is really important. If you click Edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments, it's going to create an additional copy of that file with the Lightroom adjustments. You don't need to do that. Instead, go Edit Original. That will then open up the original file. So the last time you saw it in Photoshop, that's the file that it will show you. You can go in and make your changes. And then you can just save. So Command or Control S and close, then go back to Lightroom. And the file will still be there. It has that change that we made to the PSD file in Photoshop, but it's also retained all of your Lightroom adjustments and it hasn't created an additional copy of the file. It's kept your files all nice and neat as well. So you can easily go back and forth between Lightroom and Photoshop if you really need to. and not create additional copies and additional versions of that file. So as far as this image goes, I think we're actually done. So let's take a look at the before and afters.
Hi, me again. If you're wondering how you can get involved in these editing challenges and be in with the chance to have one of your images edited by myself or by Craig, it's easy. You just need to opt in to the free Edit My Photo online hub. This is where we set new editing challenges every month, announce the winner, post a wrap up, and also share that winner's edit in a tutorial just like this one. We also create a comprehensive editing tutorial. We call them Unleashed Edits, of the raw file that we set for the challenge. This resource is available for purchase individually, but also included in our Unleashed Education membership, a paid membership with access to our premium pet photography courses, educational videos, ebooks, guest artist videos, editing tutorials, 4 monthly live group coaching calls, and of course our super friendly members only Facebook group. Through the membership, Craig and I share all of our best shooting and editing education, everything you need to become a better pet photographer, plus stacks of inspiration packaged up in a fantastic, friendly, worldwide community. But to get you started, Craig and I would love to have you join in on these free Edit My Photo challenges. If you'd like to find out more, check out the link in the description.